Hey, I'm Rylan Hartley of the Rochester Nighthawks, and you're watching Lacrosse Link, your link to all things lacrosse.
Hey lacrosse friends, welcome once again to Lacrosse Link, your link to all things lacrosse. I am your host, Steven Stamp. Very excited to be bringing you this episode featuring Brett Manney, the captain of the Albany FireWolves, who have put themselves in playoff position as we head into the final couple weeks of the NLL season. And in the Arena Lacrosse League, the East Division, the playoffs are done. The championship was last weekend. The MVP was Scott Del Zotto. What a weekend he had. We'll talk about that as Scott Del Zotto joins us here on Lacrosse Link. And make sure you stick around for the rundown where we share with you news and tidbits and items from around the world of lacrosse. This is Lacrosse Link, your link to all things lacrosse.
Watched by Danby, a big pick from McGraw and another one. Back to McGraw. He's going to let it rip and scores. Liam McGraw from downtown.
Joining me on Lacrosse Link from the Albany FireWolves, Captain Brett Manney. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Stamper.
It's always great to catch up, and what an opportune time as you guys are on a little bit of a roll here. A big win on the weekend that actually puts you back into a playoff position currently. I want to talk a bit about how things have come along, because it's obviously been a bit of a roller coaster ride this year, which I feel like was probably anticipated, right? Like that there were going to be some challenges to bring the team together with a lot of change. Everyone's coming off the pandemic, of course, but you guys may have had more change than most. Did you feel like it was going to take a bit for this team to come together and really get to the point where you wanted to be?
Yeah, I knew like in the beginning we were going to have to find our rhythm a little bit, especially offensively. So that took a little bit for us to get used to playing with each other and figuring out on that end. Defensively, there wasn't much. Like we knew what we had. We were very confident in that group, and we returned almost everyone from a very strong defensive unit before the pre-pandemic phase. So that's really what kind of happened. And then, we get Ryan Benesh into the fold, who's an incredible player, and then figuring out how to get him touches and being able to see how he plays. So then you have injuries and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, I think we had a little bit more than most, but there's everyone has to go through something. And I think the characters and the attitude on the team was going to help us prevail. And I think that's why we're where we're at and not at like, 5-12 or 6-11 at this point in time and stage.
I want to touch on some of those things you were talking about, but first, I kind of want to shatter a bit of a narrative that was going around that I've heard a lot of like announcers and analysts and that talk about with the team, saying that you guys like playing these low scoring games. That it's, you had a lot of games that you were winning where you're only giving up 6 or 7 goals. You weren't scoring a ton. Like you said, the offense took a while to come around. But I remember talking to Glenn Clark, your coach and GM, and saying, you'd like to score like 12 or 14 or 15 a game, right? Like, it's not like you guys, I know you're comfortable in a low scoring game. You feel like you can play that, but it's not ever been the choice to not score like 14 goals, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to score 17 or 18 goals a game, but that's just not the way it is. And it's not the way in which our team's built. So we know that we have an incredible goalie in Dougie and that he's going to keep us in games and do the best that he can. And, I think that we're kind of comfortable, and it helps us being able to play in these games that are low scoring games. And if it comes in the fourth quarter and we know we're only up by 2 goals, well, it's just the way it is. And so we're comfortable in being in those positions, as weird as that sounds. But I think that kind of helps us in our mentality to play a full 60 minutes and not try to take your foot off the pedal. We did that once this year, and that backfired on us. But I think for the most part, our mentality has been pretty good, and we've been comfortable in these really tight games. And I think that's a testament to not only the coaching staff, but also the players that are on this team.
You mentioned, the strong defensive unit with everyone coming back, and you did add, Adrian Sorchetti and some young guys, but it was very much a strong core returning from the team that gave up the fewest goals per game in the league. in the last season in 2020. So I think that was definitely established. And of course, like you mentioned, Doug Jameson was coming off a goalie of the year season. And anytime there's a young goalie in his early mid-20s who has that kind of success in the season, the big question is, how do you follow that up? How can he continue? And it's definitely been a bit of a roller coaster for Doug. But to me, it looked like it was always there. It was close, but it wasn't quite clicking. But it really seems like he's looking like the guy from 2020 at this point in the season.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that this year would actually be his first full year as the starter.
Right.
Because in the pandemic, that actually was, and then it obviously got shut down that 2020 season. So this will be his first full year. And I think for us, unfortunately, the beginning of the year, we just started off like in the hole. Myself and Adam Bomberry missed the first 2 games. And then we went on a stretch where we had our whole defensive unit, and it was like Saskatchewan, Philly, Halifax, all ended up in wins. And then we had a back-to-back with Georgia, and Adam Bomberry goes down. And then from that moment on, we had guys in and out of the lineup. And I told a bunch of guys on our defensive end and even our coaches, I think this past weekend was our first time we had all of our guys there since that last time in Halifax. And I think that was a difference when we had, and that's the reason why I think we dressed 11 guys, because we believe in the guys that are on there in the back end. And yeah, you mentioned Adrian and what he's been able to do. And he's been running out the front door, the back. He's been such a Swiss Army knife for us. And really hasn't complained or done anything. And I'm sure he's been uncomfortable at times, but he's just doing anything he can to help our team win. And I think that's the mentality that he's brought on, and a lot of guys on our team have as well. So it's a unit that when you look at teams that are successful, and I've been around a long time, as you know, they have consistency of guys that have played together for years and years and years. And that way it's second nature playing with guys, and their strengths, their weaknesses, and there's a lot of trust there. So when you have Nick Tchaikovsky, Jackson Ishimura, Colton Watkinson, Adam Bomberry, even Greg Downing's been playing with us for 3 years. So a lot of guys that have a lot of similar, know everyone, that helps. And there's not much turnover and filling guys in, and that helps build a strong defense.
You mentioned Adam Bomberry, and he's a guy, I know the team missed your leadership and your veteran presence early in the season. And then you came back and got back into your rhythm. But to me, Adam Bomberry is one guy that I don't think people generally get how good he is. I think they're starting to realize it, but I was watching him early in the season when he did get to play. And I thought he was, I feel like if he had been healthy all year and been able to play all the games and played at the level he's played in the games he has been in, to me, he's in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's that good. Do you feel like people don't really notice he's that good?
I don't think many. I think everyone overlooks our entire team. I think they overlook our entire defense, because it helps too when you have Dougie back there, and we know he's our catalyst. And I think people overlook every single guy that's on our defense. And when you specifically mention Adam Bomberry, he missed the first 2 games, and then he missed a couple of games in February there. And that was a really tough stretch for us. I think the month of February, we played like 6 games in 23 days, and we didn't have him available for all of them, maybe even just one of them. So he's a guy that is kind of brings us all down. He has a very quiet demeanor about him, but he's a pit bull when he's out on the floor. He has incredible angles. His stick is tremendous in passing lanes. He's able to get up and down the floor. He's got a great touch. He's an excellent passer. And he's just a very confident defender on top of that. So Clem Durazio will tell you how much he loves him. He's a big advocate of him. And I joke around with him. I'm like, is there something going on the side between you two with your infatuation with Adam Bomberry? But I have the same, I hold him in the same regard, just how good he is, and thinking that Rochester kind of just gave him away to us. And he's had something to prove ever since he came over. And he makes us stronger. He's tough. And he, like I said, he's got incredible stick. And every home game, he sits next to me in a locker, and he's just such a great guy to be around and who wants to win and cares about this game.
I think it's a great point that the whole defense the defense as a whole, the team as a whole, but the defense in particular does tend to get overlooked. Because I mentioned earlier, you guys gave up the fewest goals per game in the league in 2020. And I rarely would hear anyone talk about you as one of the top defenses in the league. And I would keep saying, this is one of the best units that has been around. And I mean, and honestly, I think if Zach Masson, I know he's been on the the holdout list or whatever, but I've heard he's interested in coming back. Like, what an injection. Like, I think this is a real, almost kind of a juggernaut defensively in the making. And now you're in playoff position after the win on the weekend. Right now you would go over to the West, in which case you would obviously have to play one of the teams there. But how confident you guys feel? I know you've still got to win a game. Nobody's given you anything at this point. With you're going to need to win, I think, your final game. But you have your fate in your own hands for the first time, really all season, going into this weekend, or next week.
Yeah, we
bye week.
In the bye, after the bye, we can, we really kind of kicked ourselves in the butt with the Georgia game, because that was a tiebreaker game. It meant a lot. That was the only team we played 3 times, and we had to kind of take that from them, and we did it. And that was a game which I kind of alluded to earlier about, we were up on them, and then we allowed them to come back and beat us, which is not a trait that we have or Glenn Clark instilled in us. But with that being said, we just need to take care of business, and we know New York is a very good team. They kicked our butt a few weeks ago, and we know like what type of offensive firepower they have, and they were a team that actually got down the floor on us really good, and that's what we like to try to do with people. So we're gonna have our hands full, and it's not going to be easy to get a win out of New York for a team that's is very well coached, and they're disciplined, and they're trying to build on something there, and even trying to make a little late playoff run. So, we got to focus on beating them and try to show them that the first time they played us, that's not who we really are. So if we can continue to play like we've been these past few weeks, we'll be a tough out for sure. But yeah, we got to take care of business, and I believe we will.
Always great to catch up. Appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate the scenery. We got some nice trees and things in the view. So thanks so much, Brett Manney, for coming on the show.
You got it, Stamper. Always a pleasure talking in, and thanks for everything you do for the game of lacrosse and getting it out there. I really do appreciate it, especially being an American. So thank you so much.
Joining me on Lacrosse Link, the MVP of the recent Arena Lacrosse League East Championship, Scott Del Zotto. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you and to get to chat about this. I think the league was delayed a bit at the beginning of the season, but got rolling. And it's just, I've had a chance to call a number of games in the ALL East this year. And it was an exciting and very high scoring, very fast paced league. And your Six Nations Snipers basically pretty much were on top of the league from wire to wire. It got a little tense in the finals, but it's got to feel pretty good to have had that feeling. Did it feel all season like this was a championship club? Because it looked like you guys were probably the team to beat, I thought, most of the way through.
Yeah, I think, at the start of the year, our coach Darcy kind of told us to look at our sweaters, and instead of saying Six Nations Snipers on it, had Every Child Matters. And it was kind of, you were playing for a different reason. So I think that was motivation for a lot of the guys in the team. And I think from start to finish, we kind of just bonded behind each other. And it was one of the funnest teams that I've played on, and I had, a great time. So yeah, I think, we had the championship in mind, and glad we got to achieve it.
You opened the season with a win against the Whitby Steelhawks. You closed the season with a win against the Steelhawks in the championship. And between those, obviously a lot of things happen, but the one thing to me watching your team play was you had a bunch of different guys. You only had about 4 players, I think, that played all 12 of the regular season games. And, everyone had a game or two or a handful that they weren't able to make, but it seemed like whoever you had in, there was a cohesiveness and a real sense of sticking to the approach. Like other teams, it seems like their games would change a bit more, maybe from game to game, but you guys were always running, always pushing the pace, always kind of a continuous attacking mentality. Is that sort of the mindset you tried to foster?
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of the guys growing up together and just playing against each other, you kind of have that kind of team atmosphere already. And me being kind of an out of towner, knowing the guys already and being so welcomed right away, I think at practice, it kind of had a little bit of a feel. Every Tuesday, you're excited to go to the rink. So I think us being a team kind of came pretty naturally, and I think that definitely contributed to our success.
You get to you get a bye in the first round of playoffs by finishing first overall with a 10-2 record. And then you wind up playing St. Catharines, who had been 6th overall in the regular season, but everybody knew they were dangerous, especially when they had their full roster. They win their quarterfinal matchup to set up a meeting with you in the semis. And on the Saturday at the ILA of championship weekend, that one goes right down to the wire. What was the feeling like in that game? You said you guys had kind of a championship feeling about it, but you've got to get through every game, and that one came awfully close to putting you off the rails.
Yeah, I mean, we knew St. Catharines was a good team. They had a lot of good shooters, good goaltending, kind of up and down. So we knew it was going to be a test, and we knew that they weren't going to be the team that we saw at the start of the year. Teams continue to get better, and I mean, kind of when it got down to the 12-12 and we got that illegal stick penalty, a lot of us looked at each other on the bench and we kind of just like, this, if we're going to lose, this isn't how it's going to happen. So I think we kind of were a little angry at the fact that 40 seconds left in an illegal stick call. I mean, it is what it is, but I said, you know what, use that as motivation and said, we're going to go win this game. Like, they're not going to get away with that. So I think it was kind of just a good hard fought game end to end. And honestly, there was a couple of chances in overtime where it could have easily went the other way. St. Catharines hit a few posts, and I mean, that's just kind of the game of lacrosse. I mean, what happens on one end can go change at the other. So, I mean, yeah, it was good though.
Overtime so often ends quite quickly, but as you said, it went back and forth a bit, and then you were able to get the game-winning goal. Can you just walk us through the play on the game winner, how it came about?
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the game, I was kind of trying to change up my shots a bit. Chase kind of kept following me, so I was trying to see where he was leaning, where he was stepping. And on that first kind of power play that we got in overtime, I let the first shot go just to see where he was going to step on an underhand. And then when I saw him start to cheat a little bit, we came back down the next time. I said, look, if I get an open shot, I'm going to try and drop my left shoulder and just kind of float it far side, because he kept dropping a little bit. And Johnny Pallas made a perfect seal for me, and Ty Argent made another good seal and kind of just opened the lane for me. And I mean, time and room, it's kind of every shooter's dream.
Johnny Pallas, I'm glad you mentioned him, because I'm looking at this, and this is a guy who has scored 210 career goals in the National Lacrosse League between regular season and playoffs. He's won 3 National Lacrosse League championships. He took the year off from the NLL and decided to play this year in the Arena League. So here he's suiting up with you guys on the Snipers. And again, 210 career pro goals. And when I saw him play, it looked like all he wanted to do was set up his teammates, make things happen, facilitate for all the rest of the guys on the team. And that came right down to the championship game as well, where he had no goals and 5 assists. What was his presence on the roster like, and how much did he do for you guys to make things happen?
I think just his maturity and his experience in the game definitely plays a huge part. I mean, he was a huge factor in that Six Nations Minto Cup era when they were nearly unstoppable. So I think having that experience, the guys that he's played with, and just being able to come to give it to a lot of guys, especially me, I know, definitely helped me on offense, gave me some more looks, just kind of seeing the floor a little bit different. So I think just him as a leader in the locker room was definitely something that we needed, especially kind of the season got pushed back. It was very all over the place. So I think him being able to just calm the guys down whenever, things started to get tense or whatever in the room, I think kind of kept us level-headed, kept us grounded. And, he always reminded us that, it's just another lacrosse game and we've played our whole lives. So it was definitely kind of a calming factor on the bench. And I think, he's a huge part of our success this year.
You personally, I mean, had a great season. You score the game winner in the semi, you get 5 goals and 3 assists in the final, get named MVP of the championship. Obviously very exciting stuff, and it must have been very satisfying. And I'm wondering, going forward, I mean, you were taken in the 2020 NLL draft, I know, in the 5th round, 77th overall, I think. And I think you were definitely one of the guys who was impacted by the season being canceled, because it was so hard to gauge players. And I feel like that for you was going to be a breakout year. Like that was a year where you would have had a chance to really show yourself up, at a high level of play, and it just didn't materialize. And you haven't really had much of a chance with when everything's gone, of course, until now. Did you see this as your chance to show, NLL teams what you can do and start to kind of keep paving the way for a movement up to the pro game?
Yeah, I mean, the draft kind of came also sudden, me leaving the NCAA to come back to Canada. So I didn't really know what kind of my plan was. I knew I wanted to keep playing lacrosse and go to the NLL, and I kind of just threw my name into the draft and just kind of see what happened. I was grateful to go anywhere, and Toronto was, a great place to go. I think it was right team, wrong time kind of thing, just with the COVID, and it was hard. I mean, it's a super hard lead to make, and there's not a ton of spots, and there's so many good guys. I think it was difficult, kind of having to find a little bit of the motivation sometimes when you're like, okay, there's going to be another draft ahead of me, and then next year, when it might be my actual first year going to a camp, there's going to be 2 other draft classes, guys coming in. So it was I wouldn't say defeating, but I think it was a little bit more motivation to go into camp and be like, you know what, I've been off. This is my time to prove. And I think I had a pretty good camp, and I think, it's just going to kind of help me get better moving forward. So hopefully good things to come in the future.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too is how consistent you were this season in the Arena League, where it's not like you had a couple of huge games where you scored like 12 points and other games you weren't. It seemed to me like you were scoring pretty consistently. And even when you weren't scoring maybe as much, it seems like your play remained consistent the way you approached it.
Yeah, I think, for the longest time, I know sometimes ball might not be dropping for you, things might not be going right. So when that does happen, you have to find little things in your game that will help the team, but also kind of get you out of that funk. So I think one thing that I've kind of challenged myself on is if the ball's not dropping, just setting a good pick. And I know ground balls are huge, so I kind of pride myself on a lot of those, like, stymie, stingy ground balls off a face-off or in a corner, just to get the second possessions. Because even though it might not be going well for me or something in a game like that, those little things contribute so much to other guys' success and the team's success. So that's kind of just, when things aren't going right, I think it's more so just what can I do to kind of benefit the team.
Really appreciate you taking the time to come on Lacrosse Link. Congratulations on the championship and on the MVP. And I think it's going to be exciting for lots of people to watch you going forward and see where your next steps take you in the game.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi, this is Jaden with Al Anderson Source for Sports. Excited to tell you that we got all our new lacrosse product in for this upcoming season. Whether you're playing box or field, our lacrosse experts are going to make sure we get you into the right equipment to elevate your game. At Al Anderson Source for Sports, we know our stuff.
All right, thanks to Brett Manney and Scott Del Zotto, terrific guests. Hope you enjoyed the conversations with them as much as I did. And now we're at the rundown, and we are going to touch on some stories that we've had on previous episodes of Lacrosse Link, your link to all things lacrosse, because there have been some developments. I just want to share with you how things are going. We talked a while ago about the box in Altoona North in the Melbourne area of Australia. We showed some footage from the very first games happening in that new box that they'd just been waiting to play in while they dealt with COVID issues, and it is open and it is running, and it has now officially been named the Alan Lure Box Court. So very cool to be named. We'll share a link and you can check out a bit more info about Alan Lure. He was a huge contributor to the game of lacrosse and box lacrosse in particular in Australia, so very fitting that it has been named for him. I know it's been in the works for a while, had to be approved, and is now official, the Alan Lure Box Court. We will take a look at a couple of field items, and one is European qualifying for the World Championships next year. The 2018 Worlds, the last one in Netanya, had 46 teams. Basically, at that point, anyone who wanted to be in could be in. You just had to apply. Do the registration, pay your fees, you're in. Now, because there are so many teams, so many nations across the globe wanting to be part of it, there is a qualification system, and not everyone will get to go to the Worlds. In this case, for the European qualifying in Poland, 22 teams took part. We talked about it happening last week. 11 of those teams have punched their tickets to the World Championship. They are Czech Republic, Netherlands, Poland, Switzerland, Wales, Austria, Denmark, Finland, Italy, Latvia, and Sweden will be heading off to Los Angeles next year for the World Championship. So congratulations to them. There was some great competition. You can go back and watch all those games, some of them very close down the stretch, especially of that tournament, the qualifying tournament. Also in field lacrosse, the Ivy League took a bit of a different approach to the pandemic than a lot of other leagues, as they tend to do with things. They didn't play. When teams went back last year, they just did not play. A lot of their players transferred to other schools, but they didn't have a season for the last couple of years, and a lot of people are like, wow, how's that going to impact them? Well, it hasn't hurt them. They are back, and wow, they are doing great. There are 5 Ivy League teams currently, as we record, in the top 15 in Division I lacrosse in the NCAA men's lacrosse. So they are doing amazing. Princeton leading the way, but there's quality up and down the Ivy League, and it's pretty interesting to see how well they're doing when there were concerns from people about how it would impact them. Did they lose players? Obviously, they have reloaded, and it's making for some very fun lacrosse. Of course, number 1 is Maryland, and they are an absolute juggernaut. What a beast those Terrapins are. So we also will go back to a few episodes ago when Robert Hope of the Colorado Mammoth, their team captain, was on the show. He was talking about the imminent arrival of he and his wife, Erin Young, their first baby. Well, that baby has arrived. It took a while. It took a little longer than they were anticipating, but Jet Robert Hope has finally made his entrance, and another member of the lacrosse family is here. I don't think you're going to see joy captured much more perfectly than in this family photo of mother and father and baby, shortly after the birth. Very exciting to see for them. Robert Hope also plays a factor in this next topic, which is the NLL playoff race. We are heading into week 21. 5 teams have clinched. One of them is Hopi's Colorado Mammoth. In the West, Colorado, San Diego, and Calgary have all clinched. So they know they'll be in, and they're all battling for first place. It's very close. Colorado at 10-7, San Diego and Calgary at 9-7. They are right in the thick of the hunt for first. That may be it, though, for the Western teams in the playoffs. In the East, Buffalo has clinched top overall spot in the league. They'll be at home for every playoff round that they play. They will have the best record in the NLL. Toronto has also clinched a playoff spot, and that's it at the moment. But as of right now, if the season ended right now, if it was over and the playoffs were about to start, Halifax and Georgia would be 3rd and 4th in the East. They'd be in. They'd be playing, actually, I guess it would be Toronto and Buffalo, respectively, in the order that we mentioned them. But right now, the Albany FireWolves, after a huge win over Philadelphia on the last weekend, they would be the 4th seed crossing over from the East to the West because they have a better record than the teams in the West. They still have to clinch, as we talked about, but if they take care of business and can beat New York in their final game, I think they basically clinch that 4th spot. I think that's true. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that would give them that spot. But again, right now, Philadelphia, Panther City, New York, and Saskatchewan all still mathematically in the playoff hunt. Obviously, for like a New York and a Saskatchewan, with the situations they're in, they would have to have a bunch of things go right for them. But it's still possible, and there's only 2 weeks left in the season. So lots to be decided in weeks 21 and 22 of this NLL season. Make sure you stick with us on Lacrosse Link to see it all unfold. Now, I am heading to Prague. In fact, I will be there when this episode airs. And I'm very excited, super stoked to be back there for the E-Box, which this year features a men's division and for the first time a women's division, and then the Alice Rebeski Memorial. And honestly, it is the one of the things that every person in the sport of lacrosse across the globe should make sure they are part of at some point in their life. It is a brilliant event. I can't wait to get back there, and we may just have some special segments in the coming weeks of Lacrosse Link, your link to all things lacrosse. I am Steven Stamp, your host. Thanks so much, lacrosse friends, for being with us. We'll see you next time.